Good afternoon, everyone. Today is the April 11th meeting of the Elementary School Building Committee, and seeing that we have a quorum, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And first, make sure all the members of the committee can hear and be heard because we're conducting this virtually. And I'll just call out names as I see them on the screen. Bruce,
I'm here and I can hear you.
Jonathan,
Hello.
Paul,
Present.
Melissa,
Here.
Simone,
Here.
Elisha,
Here.
and Allison. I see your screen is on, Allison, but so far I didn't
Allison?
hear.
There's Allison.
So we'll wait to see. We can start the meeting and just have Allison.
Hello,
Super.
I'm here.
Okay, hi, Allison.
can you
Thank
hear
you. And I know Angelica emailed me that she isn't coming today, so I maybe we'll have a few others join us later. So the meeting is now called to order, and Ksenia, I'm turning it over to you for an update, an overall update on construction. The agenda is the update on the school building, an update on playground, invoices, and public comments, and that's the order of the agenda as well.
Thank you.
So you're on, Ksenia.
And Connor, can you also ask for permission to present and put up the slides with the photos?
Okay, it says multiple. I think we've given sharing.
Okay, so while those slides are coming up, the update on the construction process is that we're doing great. Like really, really good. We are finally out of the winter. We're finally out of the ground. The foundations of the building are complete and we are raising steel. So somebody driving by the site now actually has something cool to look at. And so do we. Connor, thank you for pulling that up. We do see gray blocks over the screen where people's faces are, I assume, on your screen. I don't know why Zoom does that. Yeah, that's looking better. All right, Connor, so why don't you go ahead and flip through the pictures slowly and we'll show everybody where we are. So the first picture is a reminder of what we showed you last time, which we thought was very exciting, but some of you thought was less so. I don't know why. We're not too offended. Continuing on, this is another view of that same exciting status we had last month. And now for comparison, you see something coming up in the background? Let's move forward. There we go. That's our building starting to get built. We have had steel deliveries coming throughout the weeks. They've had to take a few, and Connor, you can keep scrolling forward slowly. They've had to take some days off, especially Saturdays, because of the rain, but for the most part, they've been able to be very productive and efficient, and work with the weather and around the weather and keep the progress moving. Does anyone have any questions as we move along for these?
Oh, there's not been any delay with our steel. We managed to get in without the customs issues that were possible last week.
So far, so good.
Okay.
That picture on the left is the construction that's ongoing of the mock-up of the exterior facade. It's not a mock-up that's going to give us necessarily a perfect picture of the attractive qualities of in the right colors. It is a mock-up of it being put together to make sure that all the ways that the building is going to come together is tested and worked out for constructability on a small scale before we release those methods to proceed all over the building as that gets constructed. Other things that are going on site and preparing to go forward soon is that the geothermal well grid has been laid out, and the permits associated with that installation, the permit applications have been submitted, and everything appears to be on track for that. We are expecting that installation to start midway through May. And there are some plans to get that done as efficiently as possible, possibly with as many as 4 rigs being able to go at the same time, if it proves to be efficient. The process of getting product data and shop drawings submitted, reviewed, and approved for all the rest of the materials and systems in the building is flying along. Danisco continues to do, truly, without joking, the fastest and most efficient job of this that I have ever seen. So like major, major, major thank you to our design team on that. The contractors are all working collaboratively, and so far so good. What questions can I answer?
I'll look for hands on the screen, or if you see them, Ksenia, as well.
Okay. Well, while we wait for hands, you leave me space to talk, I'll talk. I'll say that I had a particularly awesome week out there last week because I got the pleasure of being interviewed by the 5th graders in Fort River for their school newspaper. And I have to tell you, they asked the smartest questions. And probably some of the toughest, like, are you going to be done on time? Are you going to be done on time, that I've gotten from anyone professionally. So they are fantastic and really an incredible group of kids.
So Bruce, I see your hand up, and I neglected Michael to make sure you could hear and be heard. I missed your face on the screen because Michael's with us as well. Great. Bruce.
I'm guessing that the reason there are so few questions is that it all seems to be so clearly presented, and also it's quite early. It's exciting. But my simple question is, the concrete slab that the mock-up has been built on, does that have a future life as some part of some permanent construction, or is that simply something that will be torn up along with the mock-up at the end of the day?
It's just a mud slab that's deep enough to have damp proofing on it to tie into the air vapor barrier. Excuse me. So it will be torn up.
Thanks, Rick.
Any other questions? No, and just so people know, after these presentations, we have been posting them in the packet. And to the extent possible, our Ksenia's been working to update some of the pictures on the website, so as something picturesque becomes available, we will make it more accessible for people to see. As Allison asked, can we make sure people know that the school is being constructed? Because it's hard to see from the street. I mean, you can get a bird's eye view of it, but without driving in. Bruce, I see Bruce, is your hand up again?
Yes. It occurs to me to ask, does this represent the steel that we're looking at in that right-hand photograph? Does that represent, say, 15% of the total structure assembled at this point, something like that, more or less? Just so I can, when I'm telling people where we are, I can be accurate.
Rick, do you recall what the percentage was on the last rec?
Well, the wreck was pretty much buried into everything. Tim,
I mean,
25%
within
of all the
5%, I would
erection
say
is
yes.
detailing. So what do you think, Tim? Sorry.
Within 5, 50, it might be 12, it might be 20, but I in the ballpark, which I think is as close as we're trying to get, I would say that's accurate.
Yeah, I just want to have your number as best, but I'm just telling people where we are. I do U-turns through the school every now and again so I can see what's going on, and then I can come and talk to people. And I will represent at the moment with about 15% of the steel that's been erected, and it's starting to look very interesting.
And this is the least interesting part. Not that any part is uninteresting, but the other end is more. So.
Ksenia, I see you put your hand up too.
I have. Two things. One, Bruce, when we get to the invoice presentation at the end, one of the features of a cover sheet is it tells you what % complete for the overall CTA contract we're currently allowing to be billed as of the end of March. So it's a few days behind, like 11 in particular, but that'll give you a good formal number to tie your communications to. And the second point is also on communications. We have begun work with the town's communications officer, and we are providing these presentations, these pictures, or maybe at least one good picture from a presentation to her at monthly at the end of these meetings. And she is posting something on social media and the town's website. We're providing brief updates on the project to go along with the picture. So hopefully we're making the progress information more accessible to more people. And those posts also refer to the project website with a URL.
So I'm seeing no other questions. So that's great to know, Ksenia. And now the council meeting, not the one next week, but the week after, I'll be able to report on some of this. And knowing that Sam is putting out postings, we'll be able to refer to that. That's terrific. Thank you.
And Connor, you can go ahead and take down the slides.
So the next agenda item, and I think Bob Parent, this is for you, just a brief update on wherever we are on the playground.
Certainly,
Sir.
thank you. For those that may not recall, the playground surfacing, the Corkine material that the town has agreed to install on the playground, the town has agreed to procure that separately outside of the construction contract that CTA is performing. So we're beginning that process, myself working with Simone. As we began that process, at about the same time, we also became aware of some concerns regarding a Corkine playground that was installed within the last year. The closest significant project that Corkine has done in Easton, Mass, at Richardson Olmsted School, that there are some concerns regarding the performance of that playground that was installed less than a year ago. Margaret actually went down there a couple of weeks ago, took some photographs, and confirmed, in fact, that there are absolutely some performance problems. Since that time, I've reached out to the facility director at the school to try to better understand his perspective. He's new to the district. He came on after the product was installed, but has very quickly come up to speed. I've also reached out to the president of Corkine's North American division. Corkine, the company that actually produces the product, is a company called Ameren. So I've reached out to Ameren Cork America and begun some discussions to better understand what might be happening in Easton. I do know that they are going to be fully replacing that playground surface with Corkine, that the manufacturer and the contractor has stepped up and replacing that during the April vacation. And I'm going to make a point of getting down there to take a look at it when the installation is ongoing. But have put a lot of questions out to Corkine at this point, questions of what happened, why is it happening, how do we make certain it doesn't happen in our project, what type of assurances, extended warranties, potentially bonded warranties, things like that should we consider. So we're in the early phases of figuring out how to best incorporate the product and then protect the town at the same time. And it's very early to say where we go from here. I still have a lot of questions that I want to get answered before I'm in a position of making any type of a recommendation regarding moving forward with it at this point, knowing what has happened in Easton.
Are there any questions on this news? It's basically news as well as an update. The only, Bob, what on timing in terms of the installation of it? when do we have to, what would be the drop dead-ish time to contract it for it could be installed when we need to have it installed?
I haven't worked that backwards completely yet. We just got a schedule update from the contractor this last week, but we have no more than a couple of months to figure this out. Because we very quickly get to the point where, the contractor's relying on us being able to come in and put the product in after they're prepared this upgrade. And that, from what I hear, and a lot of this is second or third hand type of news, so you can believe some of it and not believe some of it, might have been part of the problem in Easton, that perhaps the contractor had prepared the subgrade material for the playground installation, and then it may have sat there for longer than it should have sat. So we clearly need to be ready to move ahead once CTA is ready for us to move ahead. And absolutely, that's a concern. We can't let this issue hold up the project. So I will have a better answer for that once I dig into CTA's schedule
And
and
that
work
gets,
backwards.
and then the Danisco team, the Ksenia team, Margaret team are working with you on that in terms of timing.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other hands up. The next item on the agenda is invoices, unless there are any things that we didn't know about in the last 48 hours that I don't know about, because I just flew back from another country last night. So I don't know of anything else. It doesn't look like it. So I think we're at the invoice point in our schedule, Connor.
Starting off with our executive summary as always, and our roadmap ahead up here in the top left. You can see once again our green portion here, which is our invoice previously. Our black box here, which is our current invoice package. Our yellow, which is our current unbilled portion of commitments. And then our left remaining budget uncommitted right here in white. So our current invoice package is $2,719,544. That brings us up to, that's 2.7% overall, and that's 15% of the total project budget invoice so far, with 85% remaining. Scrolling down to our cash flow, a reminder that this yellow line here shows us where we are. Right here in March invoice package. Our green lines are our previous invoices. Our blue lines are our projections. Unless there's any questions about the cash flow.
I'll add a couple of things,
Yeah.
Connor. So we're probably starting next cycle, we'll re-baseline the cash flow. So as we really get into the construction of the building, those gray bars and lines come into sync with where we've been and where we are. And then this will continue tell a good story going forward of, are we a little bit behind? Are we a little bit ahead? So that's one thing. A reminder that the tall blue bar far out at the end of a project is just our graphical approach to showing contingency that's hanging out there, because we don't want to assume that we'll be spending it in any particular month or at all. And then scrolling up to the top again, I'll bring your attention to the fact that the uncommitted value on the project right now is $11.2 million. That is not all contingency. Some of that money will be spoken for, both to procure the playground surfacing that Bob was just speaking to, but also to procure furniture, fixtures, equipment, and technology for inside the school. Basically everything that if you picked up the building and shook it upside down, this is the stuff that would fall out, right? So those procurements are ahead of us. But still a pretty healthy place to be. If there are no questions, Connor, go right ahead to the rest of the package.
I can't see hands, so if there are any questions, hopefully someone can keep an eye on the hands for me.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. Onto the invoice package transmittal. We have 8 invoices this month, quite a large package, and we will go through all of them. Starting off with the answer invoice for $77,517.99. This is 3% of Answer's contract overall and raises up to 38% complete with 62% of our contract remaining. We have Danisco's monthly invoice for $65,000. And as we mentioned previously, this is the standard monthly amount we're going to see for quite some time from Danisco on their invoices as we move through construction. And that's 1% of their contract overall, bringing up to 74% complete, 26% remaining on their contract. Now down to this invoice right here, Hub International. This is the builder's risk insurance policy, and that is $119,173. And we'll be scrolling through their invoice as well. So we'll answer any questions. Yep.
Connor, let me just jump in and give a little context to the Hub International. So builder's risk insurance is the owner's property. It's a special form of owner's property insurance carried on the portion of a new building that has already been in place. So as more gets put in place, if something were to happen to damage the newly yours piece of a building, this is the insurance that would kick in. This value represents a substantial, I mean, truly substantial savings relative to the conservative amount carried in the budget. And that savings, that money will be very handy for, to be reallocated to other uses or to become part of a general contingency and hopefully ultimate savings. Thank you, Connor.
So then moving on down, we have a couple invoices from Gagliarducci this month. And the first of which, rec number 8 right here, is to bill out the remainder of their contract. It's about $5,900. And that's for finishing up some billing for some erosion control work and the rest of their SWIP inspections that they were doing in the interim before CTA took over. And then the second requisition right here, requisition 9, is for $47,635.17, and that is billing out the retainage we continue to hold on their contract, and that bills out the last 2% of their contract, bringing them up to 100% complete overall. Down to CTA's requisition for March, requisition number 4. It's for $2,386,890 and 66 cents. That's 3% of their contract overall, bringing them up to 8% billed so far, 92% remaining their contract.
And we are continuing to hold an ever accumulating amount of retainage. So that means that if we're saying that they're 8% completed by cash, it's actually more than 8% by value that has been recognized as complete. But of that value, 5% is retained. This is a statutory matter that allows us to do this. So this is a pocket of money that's going to build as the project progresses, and it is there to incentivize each subcontractor and the general contractor to finish strong at the end of a project and to not run off once they perceive themselves to be done and get paid most of what they were going to get paid. So there's a substantial insurance in that way.
See the retainage, it just stacks up here on this far right column. We can see the $296,700 here for CTA. As previously mentioned, for Gagliarducci, their retainage would have stacked up here as well. And we released some retainage as appropriate, but we released the remaining balance right here as part of requisition 9. So it's showing $0 because they have completed their scope of work. Moving down to Allied Testing, we have an invoice from them. They've been doing tests out there, concrete tests, soils tests. And so their current invoice is for $11,652.18, 2% of their contract overall, bringing it up to 8% of their contract overall.
Have a note on that as well. So our clerk of the works, who is out there representing the owner daily, continuously, Lee Figgins, is a very, very experienced professional, and he is the one in charge of calling for testing and using judgment and collaboration with the design team on what does and doesn't need to be tested, how often needs to be tested. This whole contract is a bit of an allowance, calculated at an assumed quantity of tests and types of tests. So I think this invoice, which is through the middle of March, not through the end, but it still shows a pretty great rate of success on keeping spending tight and frugal. They, were at 8% paid through 2-3 weeks ago, at which point we were already mostly done with concrete. Most of testing happens in the ground, underneath to test soil compaction, concrete strength, etc. There is more to go. We're definitely not done, but it's a good indicator that there may be a conservative amount of savings eventually in this contract. Much too soon to say, but a really good indicator so far.
And Allied was out here for the early site package as well, so some of that billing from that 8% that's been completed so far comes from back in the early site package with Gagliarducci. Moving on to our final invoice here from Wayne J. Griffin, who supplied the pre-purchase electrical gear, which was purchased to account for lead times and prevent delays on the project. Invoice for $5,750, 2% their contract overall, bringing them up to 14% complete. And unless there's any questions on the transmittal, we can move on to looking at the invoices and the backup. We can always come back to it as well. All right, so moving down to the answer invoice, transmittal here. There's 2 parts to this invoice. The first part is answer / the sensors labor in this top portion here, the 76,000. And then a portion for our sub-consultant architect, our net zero consultant, for $1,152.99. Moving on to the backup. This is the backup for our time, Accenture's time.
And I will say that, as expected, the bulk of our billing is nothing to do with Connor or I or Margaret, and everything to do with the full-time on-site supervision provided by Lee Figgins. He is out there at this point 10-hour days and most of the Saturdays. Still working out great, and this acceleration that's happening during site work, foundation work, and steel erection is incredibly helpful, because you can get one subcontractor, or a very small number of subcontractors, to get the building done faster, basically the basic structure of a building done faster, so that then many trades at once can go to work at it, and instead of trying to expedite the work at the very end, when in order to do so you would have to involve many more trades. So being done with consideration and responsibility.
And I just paused because we're now into the backup for Architens billing, our net zero consultant here. This is their cover page, their transmittal. And this is the backup for Architens time. All this time up here is for previous billings. The backup for their current billing. So at the bottom, this section here, 331. And then they also have a sub-consultant of their own, New Frameworks, who also had an invoice that goes under Architen and then goes under us at Accenture. And then here we have Danisco's monthly invoice. That's standard 65,000. Moving on down to CTA's requisition. And the summary here of their billings. Zoom in on it a little bit. Current period here, billings and stored materials here. Retainage on the right. This is Gagliarducci's rec number 8 for that $5,900, billing out the remainder of their contract. Some erosion controls there, SWIP inspections, and they didn't use all the SWIP inspections that we set the allowance up for, so there was a credit as well.
And SWIP inspections are inspecting along the perimeter of a site, the erosion and runoff controls to do with essentially construction water not getting out beyond the site fence and into the environment.
And then it's a good example of retainage here, which will come relevant for CTA's future, in the future. You can see the retainage stacking up in this right-hand column down to this $47,000 number here. Then when we come to requisition 9, that's the amount we're billing here, so we're releasing the retainage. And when we go down to the backup, it's all zeros. This period, stored materials, retainage, all zeroed out. This is the Wayne J. Griffin invoice.
And this is the vendor of pre-purchased electrical gear.
Yep.
Some of that gear has been arriving in dribbles, as we discussed last time. So this is another progress billing for some of that.
Moving down to the builder's risk insurance policy invoice from Hub International. And then the Allied Testings invoice. And they list all their tests and the quantity of the tests here. The rates here. The total amount stacks up. All right.
Ksenia?
Yep.
Okay, Bruce's hand just went up. Bruce?
Yes, I just, Ksenia, you mentioned the insurance, the builder's risk insurance that the builder covers to protect our accumulated investment on the site as the course of structure. You said that this was substantially lower than had been budgeted. And it occurred to me, is there something special about that, or is it just that you found a low bidder? Is it more than just a low bidder?
It's a great question, Bruce. We believe that the original feedback, long before the project was even designed, really, that was received from the insurance agent that was consulted at the time was just a very conservative number. And we think that the elements that made that number more conservative than ultimately was necessary was they're looking at the proximity of the wetlands. and thinking about flood risk, but not knowing, because the building was not, the design was not available for them to look at yet, that the design team was going to specify bringing the foundation, the floor of the building up by several feet as part of an early site package. So it's, I don't know how well it comes through in the photographs, but when you stand up there on the top of the extremely well compacted and dry platform, you are a good deal higher than all the land around you, and we are outside the flood boundaries on the flood maps. So I think that assumption was conservative. I would rather them be wrong in this direction than the other direction. But there were multiple quotes received for this coverage, and there's not anything substantially, this quote is not a substantial outlier. It is the lowest, but it's not a substantial outlier. And Margaret, your hand is up.
Thank you, Ksenia. That's a reassuring answer.
Yeah, I just want to say that one of the real challenges about these projects is that we have to establish values for all of the soft costs as well as the construction costs. You know, this value was established in the budget back before the public vote, right? So it was during the schematic design period. So it was a conservative number. We knew it to be a conservative number, but it's always better to have conservative numbers, because if for some reason the number had come in over what we estimated, the MSBA, like everything else, would say, you know, we won't reimburse on that. So, in fact, Ksenia, I can't remember, this may be one of the categories they don't reimburse on very much, but at any rate, it's partly about perception, and it's partly about how long ago it was that we developed the numbers.
Thank you, Margaret. That's a great point. And I guess the other element of it was that we brought this insurance, you know, in having closer discussions with the town's insurance agent about the right time to start this insurance. It became evident that buying it at the start of the early site package work, which is probably what was assumed in the original quote, was just not necessary, because you don't have a building to protect yet. You're just moving dirt around. So I think the contraction of a duration also helped us.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Any other questions on what's been presented? And Connor, you can keep going then. I'm not seeing any. And I just want to note Deb Leonard has joined us. Hi, Deb. I just want to make sure you can hear us and we can hear you.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great.
So the Allied invoice here was the last invoice we had to go through. So with that, as always, we have pre-reviewed these invoices and recommend them for your approval.
And Connor, is that the full set of invoices?
Yes, this is the full set of invoices. Yep. Yep, we reached the end. Yep.
Then I think if there's no more discussion, we'll have take motion to approve.
Margaret's hand is up.
Margaret, is your hand up on the motion? No.
And Connor, could you take down the screen now, please?
So I make a motion that we approve the invoices as presented.
I'll second.
Jonathan seconds, and I'll go around the room and hopefully not miss anyone this time. Bruce,
I approve.
Kathy? Yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Michael?
Approved.
Melissa?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Deb?
I'm gonna abstain just because I came in so late.
Okay, so there an abstain. Allison?
Yes.
Simone?
Yes.
And Alicia?
Yes.
So it's unanimous with 1, 2, 3 people missing and 1 abstention. So thank you very much for, as always, an amazingly clear presentation of invoices. So are there any other comments or questions before I open it up for public comments? I'm seeing no answer, no heads saying it. So we are open for public comments, and there are two people in the public. If you want to raise your hands, we'll bring you in. Maria, I think I have brought you in.
Yes, you did. Thank you, Kathy. Maria Kapicki, South Amherst. Once again, much gratitude to the whole team. Bob Parent, thank you for your diligence and trying to make sure that, we still do the Corkine, but we make sure we get it right. That's awesome. Honestly, the only other, this is probably more of a question or a request for Paul and Melissa. I had mentioned at the last meeting or the one before that, possibly getting something up onto the town website, which might be more appropriate there or even at a town council meeting to talk about how this is going to look on people's tax bills, because that's coming up and we got taxes due in May. So the impact of the debt exclusion override, I think it would just be helpful. So another request for that. And finally, Ksenia, I don't know if you're aware, but we got a DPW and a fire station that need building soon. So you might want to keep that in mind. Would love to see your face there. That's it. Thank you so much, team. Good job.
Thank you for your comments. I don't see any other hands up. So with that, I think we can adjourn the meeting. And Margaret, or Ksenia, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but we meet again in May on May.
Honor and I are going to race to see who scrolls our calendar the fastest.
Right, I know, I can do that too.
Race here. The 16th, May 16th.
May 16th is the next meeting, and everyone should, Connor a while ago put hold on people's calendars, so the Zoom invites come a bit later, but you should have that. So May 16th, and we'll be continuing to meet monthly. And Margaret's hand just went up. So
I just want to comment, that is UMass graduation that day, and I will be at UMass graduation, but carry on. Good day to have a Zoom meeting. So
that's great. And I know there has been discussion on the ceremony on the site as my understanding, has not been a date picked yet, but it's going to be in May, late May. Is that correct?
We are working toward a date. That is, we have a date in mind, which is May 23rd, but we are first, before we issue and circulate the announcement, we are verifying that the availability for the attendees is there. It's a little bit of a difficult date because it's the Friday before the Memorial Day weekend. But it also happens to be when the actual completion of steel is just about ready to be done. So definitely a thing to celebrate.
Okay, that's great. So, Nick, by the time we meet, if that's still the date, it'll be only a week off from that date. So we'll just inform everybody by email if there becomes a concrete date, so you can put it on your calendar. And also, I know we were thinking of how to get the various school kids, teachers, whatever level of ceremony that we put together a really good group when we dug dirt, which was the last time we did this. We put our shovels in the dirt.
Well, I know that the Fort River Student School newspaper is absolutely going to be there.
So once again, I just want to thank everyone in the design team for, Ksenia keeps reporting on how quickly you're responding to whatever questions and turnaround. It's been terrific. So as was the experience of watching the building get designed. So thank you all, and I guess I should be taking a motion to adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn. Anyone second it? I see various people. Okay, I got a second from Michael. I'll just go quickly around the room. Bruce,
Agreed.
Kathy, yes. Jonathan,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Simone,
Yes.
and Alicia.
Yes.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned, and I look forward to seeing everyone a month from now. Thank you.